I was like, I gotta listen to more Brandi Carlile. And then I heard the story and I was like, why do I know the words to this song? I don't like, at first I didn't recognize it, but I was like, I feel like I know this in my bones. It's in my bones somehow. Like,
that's how I felt too. I was like, when I started getting into her, I was like, I know this song already. How am I singing this song already? Like,
it's so weird. And there isn't a whole lot on it when I was like looking online about the story. But it's like one of those songs I think everyone just knows, but they don't know why they know it. Yeah.
I feel like, oh my God, Philip Phillips' Home is like that.
Yes, I was literally thinking about that. Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, and you know what's funny is that song too was also used during like the 2012 Olympics. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just an Olympics thing. If a song is used for the Olympics, we just know it.
Welcome to the Siren Songbook, a podcast where we discuss female artists, their music, their history, and the impact they've made on the music industry. Join us each month as we pick a new inspirational artist and celebrate exactly what it is that makes them so magical. Welcome everyone to episode 4 of the Siren Songbook. I'm Amy.
And I'm Kasey.
And today we're talking Brandi Carlile. Woohoo! Janelle from our last episode, our guest from our last episode, picked her. She has been on our list. And I was waiting to see if the album with Elton John came out, but I haven't heard any more announcements about it yet. So it's as good a time as ever to talk about her. I've got my shirt on from the concert I went to last year, which I'm going to talk about later. Best present ever. And yeah, Brandi's like one of my top artists.
Yeah.
Her albums are my comfort albums.
She's your favorite artist's favorite artist, I think.
So let's dive in. I know that you have like timeline notes and stuff.
Yeah, I figured I get the timeline. You can fill in as you go. Just as a little bit of a tiny background, Brandi Carlile is an American singer, songwriter, and producer, if you don't know who she is. Her work spans many genres, including folk rock, alternative country, Americana, and classic rock. She is a 10-time Grammy winner and has been nominated 27 times for her music and the music she helps create with others. So that's, nuts. As like early life, she taught herself to sing as a child and began writing songs at the age of 15. She's also a self-taught pianist and guitar player, and she taught herself how to play guitar at 17. So people that say that, once you get to like a certain age, like it's really hard to learn a new instrument, you definitely can if that's something that you want to do. She definitely did that. And she decided to drop out of high school to pursue her music career. Later, she would meet her future bandmates and collaborators, Phil and Tim Hanseroth, who were performing in Seattle nightclubs, and they still are in her band to this day. In 2004, she was signed to Columbia Records on the basis of her strong songwriting and the demos she recorded at home. Her debut album, Brandi Carlile, was released in 2005.
You were talking about the brothers, and one of my favorite stories is that she was trying to play with them because they were pretty well known around the scene around there. And she had booked a gig with them. They had it on it. They worked really hard. And the boys stood her up.
No! No.
But she decided she wasn't going to give up on them. And so like, at some point she was basically like, guess they're not coming.
Oh my God.
And then she played a gig with them, and her and Tim started a band, and Phil wasn't interested yet. But then the first time they sang 3-part harmony together, they were like, okay, this is a thing.
What I love about their dynamic, and I don't know if that's changed in very recent years, but, even up until By the Way I Forgive You, she's talked about this, that the three of them split songwriting credit equally. That is a dynamic that I share in my own band. I think that that's like such a healthy place to be. And I always like, anytime I hear that like a band like splits songwriting credit equally, I'm like, okay, well, we're starting at the top. I already love everything that you do because of that. I think that that's super awesome. It seems now, like the fact that they've been working together for like 20 years at this point, and there's no sign of stopping. And Brandi Carlile as an artist is actually a band, and it's the three of them. Yeah. And it's not just actually Brandi
And she
Carlile.
talks about that in her book, how like she had to come to reconciliation with the fact that her name wasn't her name anymore.
Yeah.
It's the band.
Yeah.
But they even they live together.
Oh, they all live on a compound, right?
They live on a little compound. together.
I could not do that with my bandmates. I need them, I love them, but I need you to only see me around rehearsal and showtime.
Yeah, they're all like actually like a little family, even when they started having kids and stuff together. Phil actually married Brandi's sister.
Oh my God. Oh, I didn't know that. That's so cool.
So they're like actually like
family.
They formed this family together, and she was
believe-
not happy about it at first.
Oh,
she was
no.
like they got together. He's a decent amount older than her, I think. Like 10, 11 years.
Oh, okay.
I think they said nothing like terrible, but older than her. Mm-hmm. And Brandi was just like, that's my little sister. And then she was like, this is going to be the end of our band if you break her heart.
That's fair. That's fair. I get that.
And he had just gotten divorced, and so she was just like super nervous about it. But then they got married. They have kids. They all live happily together. And
That's so sweet. It's so crazy that they went from like literally standing her up
yeah,
to now like they're actually family now.
They're inseparable.
That's so funny. That's insane.
I was like, if somebody stood me up like that, I would have been like, I'm done with you.
Dude, that would have been it for me. I would have been like, okay, assholes. Great. See you later.
But so yes, 2005, she released her first album.
It was a 10-track album with songs written by her and the twins and received wide critical acclaim. She was featured on Rolling Stone's 10 Artists to Watch in 2005, and the album peaked at number 80 on Billboard and number 1 on the U.S. folk album chart. In his review of the album, Stephen Thomas Erlewine wrote, the accolades combined with the cover artwork that captures her at her cutest as if she were a cousin of Rachel Lee Cook, which I'm not really sure what that means, might make some listeners suspicious of Carlile since the cumulative effect makes her seem like a pretty packaged creation. He further wrote, her music is rich, warm, and seductive, familiar in its form and sound, yet sounding fresh, even original, particularly in how her folky singer-songwriter foundation blends with her art pop inclinations. And I will say just ahead of time, my favorite song on the album is Follow. I mean, I have a tendency to like singles. I'm just a singles gal. But I just think that that's such a fun song. And it also just seems so timely for that time period. Like it sounds like it could have been on like the Chronicles of Narnia soundtrack.
I wrote Happy down. I just love that song. And then also like that song always caught my attention because of the name Amber Lee. And like you don't usually hear a female singing about another female in songs like that often, especially around that time. Like it didn't feel like a very prominent thing that happened.
Yeah.
Also just the song in general. I just love that song. Reading the book, I got to like hear the story, and Amber Lee was like her best friend. And then one day, and she sang backup for her father's Elvis impersonation band. And it was like her first job, and she loved it. And then she came out to Amber Lee. And Amber Lee kind of started distancing herself a little bit. Her father fired Brandi from the band because the band was uncomfortable with her lifestyle. And Amber Lee's boyfriend at the time was also very Christian, very conservative, and didn't like Brandi's lifestyle. And Amber Lee started pulling away. And so now when I hear that song, my heart just breaks because I know the story behind it. And I never knew the story. I was like, was that a girlfriend? And then I listened to her book, and that's what happened. And so that song just hits even harder now.
The second album is The Story. It was recorded in 11 days on 2-inch audio tape in order to capture the electricity of Carlile's live performances, which she was beginning to be known for. She had just gotten back from opening for other artists, having her first headlining tour, and they really wanted to capture that electricity. The album features the title track, The Story, which features a crack in her vocal performance that was not intentional but ended up making the final cut. And I wrote that it feels like the emotional apex of the song for me, and it's one of my favorite parts. Like I didn't know it wasn't like an intentional part. And I think that the quality of that her voice is not perfect. And I love the fact that they decided, we're going to keep that because it adds a lot of character. The song The Story was prominently featured in commercials for General Motors during the 2008 Summer Olympics, and after increased album sales by 368%. Sales for the single alone increased to 28,091 copies, and the song peaked at number 5 on the iTunes Music Store's most purchased list. A few of her songs were featured on an episode of Grey's Anatomy and introduced a whole new audience for her music, obviously most famously The Story. And what we were talking about kind of earlier before we started the podcast was just how that's one of those songs, like the first time I heard it, I felt like I knew all the words already. I wasn't even sure why, because it's just one of those songs that was just kind of everywhere, but not enough. And of course, I will say, obviously, for The Story, my favorite song on that album is The Story. I listen to it all the time still. It's such a good song. Her performance of it at the Austin City Limits Music Festival. That's all I gotta say about that. I love it.
Yeah, I knew that one. I mean, we were talking about it at the beginning. I knew that one from just hearing it everywhere. Like, I didn't even realize it. And then I knew it from Grey's Anatomy and watching Sarah Ramirez sing it as Callie in that really emotional scene. And even to this day, like when she was on tour with Pink, people still somehow, I don't know how, don't know who she is. Ugh. But she started singing The Story and they're like, oh, it's the Grey's Anatomy song.
Which is,
and I'm like,
crazy. But like, I mean, what I do love about, situations like that, I know some people could be like, that's so annoying that people know this song from this TV show. But like, that's how a lot of people got into her in the first place, And I think I was looking through a lot of like older videos and stuff, and so many comments from like even 8-10 years ago on YouTube are like, she's so good, I can't believe she's not a bigger artist. Why is she not a superstar? I mean, like, we live in the future and we know that she's a much bigger artist now, but like, yeah, it's insane. This slow burn seems to be like, the biggest reoccurring kind of like sentiment is that this is a very slow burn career for an artist, which is great. I mean, you don't see many artists nowadays have their like, they start to rise to the stratosphere in their late 30s, early 40s. And I think that that's so great. I mean, we talked about Beyonce this last podcast, and yeah, I mean, like she's never been bigger. Yeah. Like, she is the biggest artist in the world. She's in her 40s. I think that's so cool. And I'm so glad that it makes me feel good every time I start to think like, oh my God, the clock is ticking. I need to just give up. Like Brandi Carlile, like David, my partner will always talk about this. Like throughout the years, like I'll just sit there and be like, oh my God, well, I'm almost this age, or I'm almost this age, or I'm this age now. And like, what am I going to do? And he's like, okay, well, Brandi Carlile like started to really take off in like 2017.
The era of The Story, as she calls it, brought massive change, and the biggest realization of that was when she walked in her dressing room and had a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of wine from Elton John.
Oh, man.
She's still at this time, though. Elton John is like her idol. Yeah. She did a performance of Honky Cat when she was little, got all dressed up like him, didn't win. But she probably should have, in my opinion. But the producer they had chosen in lieu of Rick Rubin didn't believe that she was capable of delivering a live vocal, and he had like concerns that it was either she was always too loud or too pitchy or too affected or too emotional or just out of bounds.
Oh my God. Boo. Sometimes producers can really make a record, and sometimes producers don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And
it goes back to that crack you talked about.
Yeah.
Like, that crack makes it for me.
Oh, yeah, because it's at the, I mean, is it really like a key change kind of, I guess?
Yeah.
It's at the key change, the very start of it. All of these lines, and it's just, it hits so hard. I mean, like, when I first showed my partner Brandi's music, when we first started dating, like, I played him this song, and he was like, that crack is kind of what made him like double take, like, whoa, who is this, and
to think that like that's what we also come to know of Brandi. Like, when she does that, everybody's just like, oh my God, it's Brandi.
Yeah.
And they were telling her, no, you can't do this. Ugh. You can't. I don't like that. You're too emotional.
Rough. Oh my God. I mean, not to like derail into my own stuff, but like How He Loves Me, when I recorded that vocal for it, my keyboardist at the time was complaining about how fucking rough and rugged it sounded at the end. Like, he's like, there's just way too much like graveliness to it. Like, I think we need to re-record it. Like, he was pissed actually. And like, I just remember sitting there going, that's literally just how I sing. I don't know, dude. It's the same thing. Like, some people just like don't understand
and
the
he
vision.
was wrong, because that's my favorite part.
Mine too. That's why he's not in the band anymore. But like, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, I think those moments are so hard to capture in the studio that you should feel lucky when you do capture these like moments of pure raw emotion. And that's why those moments are always so effective for people to hear.
But yeah, so she talks about how like she gets these flowers and she's like kind of feeling like she made it from Elton John. And then she talks about, I'm reading this directly from her book. I was just waking up in my hotel room and an unknown number came through. Part of me wondered way deep down if it might be him. So obviously I didn't answer. I wasn't dressed properly or awake enough to speak to Elton John on the phone. He left a voicemail. Hello, Brandi. It's Elton. Listen, I'm absurdly busy and I don't want to mess you around. So call me back at this number so we can discuss this song of yours. He left a number. I was freaking out. I jumped out of bed and got dressed, frantically trying to pull together a cup of coffee and some semblance of collectedness. He called again 1 minute later, and then again, and again, and again. At this point, I was being ridiculous, and I knew I needed to get myself together. I picked up the phone and dialed the number after a good stiff chug on my hotel room coffee. Hello there. A very loud old British woman shouted into the phone at 90 decibels. She sounded like a witch from a Disney movie. Hi, I stuttered. My name is Brandi Carlile. Can I speak to Elton? Oh, sorry, darling. It's Elton speaking. It's just that you never know who's calling nowadays. Anyone who isn't in love with that man is crazy in my mind. He ended up recording the song Caroline with me in Vegas. He sang and played piano. His playing was so skilled and intricate that no piano player I've ever played with has ever been able to pull it off live.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I mean, to piggyback off of that in particular, this is off of Give Up the Ghost, where he does that song.
Yeah.
And that album was released in 2009. It debuted at number 26 on the Billboard 200. And that one was produced by the legendary Rick Rubin, who does know what the fuck he's talking about and isn't going to make Brandi feel bad for the way that her voice actually sounds. Yeah, and it features a collaboration with Elton John on the song Caroline. And I think that that's like... what like a highlight moment, you know, in your career, to just be like, oh, I'm working with my absolute hero who called me to tell me that he likes my music. And what I love about Elton John so much is that so many artists like earlier in their career have a story of Elton reaching out to them and being like, I love your music. I love this. And I think that that's so cool. I remember during the pandemic, one of my absolute favorite artists of all time, Hayley Williams, released a solo album. And he was like one of the only people championing it, because it just like was released and not a whole lot of people talked about it. And I remember hearing it and being like, this is one of the best albums ever. I can't believe people aren't talking about this. And Elton played, I think it was Dead Horse or something. I don't remember which song, but he played it on his little radio hour. And he understands the influence that he has, and he uses that influence to prop up like
other artists.
Yeah. And
which I feel like Brandi incorporates too.
Yeah. Like, so he, you know, he'll prop up like newer artists, and she works with artists that like feel like their time is up, and she goes, no, it isn't. Take my hand. Let's go. I love that. I love that about her.
She's amazing. But yes, so she wrote Give Up the Ghost. One of my favorite songs is That Year. And it's like, it stopped me. I was doing work and stuff. It stopped me. I was like, I need to look up these lyrics. And then I got to read the book, and it was, her friend committed suicide. But the line that really gets me is there's two lines. It's been 10 years since I've said your name. It feels good to say you're my friend again. Because she said, you know, she was very religious. She grew up Baptist. She always was trying to find the reconciliation between Jesus and religion, and the Jesus she loves, and her lifestyle, and her. And I love the way that she has found a way to keep her spirituality in a religion that just wants to reject her. But the line, I was angry, I was a Baptist, I was a daughter, I was wrong.
Ooh, that's powerful.
That hit. really, really hard. And I'm about to cry right now talking about it. Because my friend Christine, when I was 11,
Wow,
committed suicide. And I remember the church, because I went to a Baptist church, and the church was very much like, she's not going to heaven.
Oh my
she's
God.
not
Jeez.
blah blah blah. Me and my friends made a tribute to her in our youth room with pictures,
Yeah.
and they took them down and painted over it. And I remember it was just very hard. So that line, the I was wrong, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, that song is hard.
Yeah.
That song is hard.
I mean, something that I've always loved about Brandi Carlile is her way of being able to like, and I say this about a lot of artists, like that's the whole point of like a really good songwriter is someone who's able to put into words something that we feel that we don't know how to verbalize. But she has like a very, very special way of doing that.
And she does it in a way too that like it's not overly graphic and it doesn't make me feel.
Yeah, it's not so extremely on the nose, but you know, like for people like you that have actually been through that same sort of situation, like you can identify it right away. And somebody else could listen to that song and be like, oh, this is just a hard song, but I like it. And they don't have that, you know, they don't need to have that context to be able to enjoy it too. I think that there are some artists that are very, they leave nothing to the imagination whatsoever, which is also great. You know, that's another form of songwriting. But then I know some people that like struggle with connecting to it because they're like, well, I didn't go through that.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I feel like that song too, like so many people, especially in our generation, have gone through that loss.
Yeah. Another, you know, great thing is I think she started to be more open about her sexuality at this time period when she started to like reconcile with moments like this. She's also able to like be or feel safe enough to be more herself. In the same year that this album came out, Brandi was nominated for a GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Music Artist on her work for this album. In one of the reviews for this album for Paste, Rachel Maddow wrote, "Oh, writhing and burning and staring at life straight down the barrel. Give Up the Ghost is exactly the album Carlile needs to make at this moment. The production is thick but elegant, applied with full knowledge that the songs could exist beautifully in a sparse acoustic strum daze, but that they deserve more than that," she added. "The best part about Give Up the Ghost, she will probably make an even better album one day." And we are in the future.
Yes,
we know that she does. And this is where I saw this. Okay. So I was listening to the song Dreams, which I would say is my favorite song from that album period, because I just remember being a kid and like watching MTV and I remember that music video.
Yeah.
And literally a comment on the music video that's on YouTube right now, that's from 8 years ago, that says in all caps, why she's not a big star like right now. She's amazing. And obviously, you know, like I said earlier, we live in the future.
We know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that album. I also wrote down just an honorable mention of Before It Breaks. The melody in that chorus is so beautiful. Like that melody stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
Also around this time, I'm not sure if this came before... Seattle was in a total state of shock in 2019 because there was a series of violent crimes against the LGBTQ community. And there was a specifically disturbing story about a woman named Jen Hopper and her fiance. Her fiance got murdered. And Brandi found out that they were both huge fans. And she reached out to them, met up with Jen for dinner. They talked. She got to tell her all about her fiance Teresa and how amazing she was. And she talked about how music helped her heal. And so Brandi gave her her guitar.
Oh my gosh.
And they became friends. And they started working on these charities together where they did music and self-defense to help people. This is how she gets in touch with Catherine.
Oh.
Catherine is working with Paul McCartney overseas on charities.
No big deal. Just Paul McCartney.
She reads this story about an American musician whose working with Jen. She was keeping up on the story of Jen and Teresa. And they get in contact because she wants to help. And Brandi thought that she was 65 years old over the phone. And then she comes to America. They're supposed to meet. She was like, I was not looking forward to meeting the charity lady. I wanted to go out with my friends, but I was like, whatever, I'll go meet this old lady. I walk in. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. And so that's how they met. And then they started working on these charities together and stuff. But, you know, speaking of like, Brandi wasn't even a huge star at this time. No. Like you were saying.
No, yeah.
And she's already servicing her fans and making change with the platform she has.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a beautiful story. About how and she says her and Jen are still really good friends, and they work on the Looking Out Foundation.
Yeah.
Looking Out Foundation.
Yeah. Which I think her wife is still like the chairman of, or yeah. That's so awesome. I know that so they get married in 2012, so they've been together for 12 years already. They've got 2 kids. They're beautiful. And around this same time is when they start working on, or when Brandi starts working on Bear Creek, which is my favorite Brandi Carlile album. It's the album.
It's a great one.
I wrote about that kind of in my notes, where this is the album that got me into Brandi. I was sitting I was out in my college apartment in my bedroom listening to a Glenn Hansard Pandora radio station, and obviously it would always play, you know, like Glenn. It would always play the Swell Season, like stuff like that kind of mix. But then That Wasn't Me came on, and I instantly looked up from whatever I was doing, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I bought the album on iTunes like immediately, because I was like, I need to be able to hear more of this. And I spent the next few months not listening to anything else. I took it home to my sister, and I was like, you gotta listen to this. And it's one of her favorite albums, and Brandi's one of her favorite artists now because of it. She would kill me for talking about it, but she performed Raise Hell for a performance in high school, and I got to watch her. I love Raise Hell. I think it's such a good song.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. I have it written down here, especially the line, "You had a mind to keep me quiet, and although you can try, better men have hit their knees and bigger men have died."
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
When it has that chuck of the guitar, the better men have hit your knees. I love that part. I love every fucking song on this album is so good. It's really hard to pick a favorite. It was released on June 5th, 2012, and I found it a few years later because I'm lame and I'm late to the party. So I didn't become a Brandi fan until 2015, 2016. Somewhere around there. It was after Firewatcher's Daughter came out, but I heard that song and oh my gosh, it debuted at number 10 on the US Billboard 200, making it her first ever top 10 on the chart. And I wrote, my favorite song would be That Wasn't Me, because it was the song that got me into her in the first place. But I could pick any song off of that album, and I love it's such a sonically cohesive record.
It is.
And it's so sure about what it is and what it wants to be. And it's still one of my comfort albums. Second I start, the very first opening track where it's her and the boys just singing the ooh little thing.
Hard Way Home.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down. There's so many songs from that album that I just knew. And I don't know that I even knew that it was Brandi Carlile. I just knew it and was like, I like that song.
Yeah.
Raise Hell is one of my go-to songs that I sing with my band all the time.
I love that song. And it has her signature raspy, cracky voice. It just showcases it in such a beautiful way, just like with the story.
And also the story behind Raise Hell is that she was on tour with this guy who was driving her nuts. And she was pissed. There was a thunderstorm one night, and she was backstage, and she just wrote this song. But my favorite part is she goes, I was angry and I was upset and I wrote this song. But she had just she was still with Kim, I think, at this point when she wrote it, which was her first really long-term relationship.
Oh, okay.
And they're still friends, and they broke up, and then she loved Catherine, and then her and Catherine got together, and they even helped decorate Kim's house.
Lesbians.
She's like, that's what she goes. She goes, I love lesbians.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is. I love lesbians.
But anyway, that's beside the point. She had just sent Catherine back overseas, and they weren't together yet. I've sent my love across the sea, and although I didn't cry, was really what she was so upset about. But she was just like, I'm done. I'm not with Catherine. I'm not with Kim. I'm not with anybody. I'm
on tour with the Cho.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. I love that.
And she's like, and by the time I wrote the line, I sent my love across the sea, and although I didn't cry, she's like, that's when it really came out what I was upset about.
Oh. Well, thank God they got married. The story has a happy ending.
They got married, and they spent, like, when they finally decided to get together, they ended up spending a week in a cabin together, or a month, a week, a certain amount of time in a cabin together to see if they were compatible, how it would work out and everything.
Brave.
Because having a relationship like that is difficult.
Yeah.
And so they just locked themselves up in a cabin. She said they had one fight, and it was over Joni Mitchell. Because Brandi said she didn't like Joni Mitchell.
Oh, Brandi said that? Oh my God, wait a minute. I remember Catherine talking about this. Oh my God. Hilarious.
Brandi said she didn't like Joni Mitchell. And Catherine said, I don't know how we can make this work if you can't wrap your head around Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. Well, we all know how that ended up too.
And Brandi laughed at her. And Brandi said, I just don't think Joni's tough. And Catherine got so upset. She played one song for her, didn't talk to her for hours after. Obviously, we all know how that turned out.
Yeah.
Brandi loves Joni now, but Catherine was like, this might be the end of our relationship.
That's fair. That's very fair. That is a very... Anybody listening, that's an acceptable reason to break up with your partner if they don't respect Joni Mitchell. Oh my gosh.
But so, and then, they had their relationship. She went over, met her family, and Brandi wanted to propose, but she was saying gay marriage wasn't legal here. And when you have that kind of looming over your head, it's very unromantic because you feel like you don't have a future. And that broke my heart.
Ugh, yeah.
It did get approved. I think they said they got married in, was it Massachusetts? They drove down. They had 3 weddings. They had 3 weddings. They had one here in America, and then they had one overseas, and then I think the other one was overseas too. And they were, because Catherine's parents were split, so they had weddings for them, and then they had one here, and they drove them down to Massachusetts so they could sign the paper.
Nice.
I just thinking about that and how it wasn't even that long ago and everything that's going on now. And then, it goes into, which is part of her activism too. It goes into how she's an out, proud lesbian, married to her wife, has a beautiful family. I've always loved the way she talks about her family and Catherine. Not in a... Janelle said this one time. It's not like she's saying, oh, I'm a lesbian in this. She's just talking about them like anybody would talk about their family. Yeah. And it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love it. And they're so cute together. Oh my God.
So cute, dude. I love them.
So they got married, and I forget where we were before this. I got sidetracked because we talked about them getting married.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we're moving on to the Firewatcher's Daughter.
Oh, okay.
If that's okay.
Yes,
yeah.
That's good.
The next album was released in March 3rd of 2015. The Firewatcher's Daughter. Boston Globe wrote, whether the Firewatcher's Daughter continues the country folk flirtation of 2012's Bear Creek, returns to the warm adult songcraft of the story, and give intelligence, thoughtful clarity, and most importantly, the most arresting female voice in pop this side of Adele. I'm betting on her. Mm-hmm. And amen. Yes. Boston Globe. It was #1 on Billboard's top rock album charts. I also really love this album too. I think it's like a great, you know what? It's so funny because like she could have just done Bear Creek again and I would have been completely happy with it. I mean, like obviously I found her after this album came out. So when I listened to Bear Creek and I was like, I need everything else from her. And I found the story and I was like, why do I know this song already? I listened to Firewatcher's Daughter and I was like, oh, this is like Raise Hell, but a whole album like that. But then there's this performance of The Eye that really captured my attention. It was just like
that one written down here too.
Yeah, the it's like the black and white. It's her and the twins. One of them's playing guitar. They're all singing in 3-part harmony, and that's it. And I was like, I'm fucking obsessed with this song.
I'm obsessed with that one too. Like the wall-to-wall 3-part harmonies, just and then the line, "You can dance in a hurricane, but only if you're standing in the eye."
Dude.
Every time it makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
Every time.
I've spent a lot of time just like when I found that song, I just would like it would play and then I just had to play it again and I have to play it again. I have to play it again. I'm like laying on my bed in the dark, just like being a moody, like 19, 20-year-old just again.
Leo can attest to this. There has been times, and we're going to talk about it later, but when I listen to her album with Alicia Keys, Brandi is one of those people, one of the only people I feel like who can hit me that way. There's been a few albums that have hit me this way, but Brandi, for some reason, when her albums come out, we were listening to her Paper Flowers, and Leo was listening to the whole album, and I was like, Brandy's on this. Brandy's on this. I can't wait. I mean, I love Alicia Keys too, but Brandy's on this. And Paper Flowers came on, and he turns around halfway through the song, and I'm under the covers sobbing because I cannot handle how beautiful it is.
That seems to be a very like common reaction to Brandi Carlile's music.
And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Of course not.
And I feel that way about The Eye. The first time I heard The Eye, very much had that kind of reaction.
Yeah.
I Belong to You is one of my favorite songs. And especially because I feel like, I was thinking about this the other day. Singing I Belong to You to someone can have weird connotations, especially if you're in a straight relationship, but they're not. It's not even the sentiment of I belong to you, but I'm giving myself to you.
Yeah.
And the line in that one that I wrote down is, I know I could be spending a little too much time with you, but time and too much don't belong together like we do.
Oh, so good.
I love it.
Oh, I love lesbians.
Oh, it's so good.
I love it. That's so good.
And they sang that together in the concert that we went to. That's the song they sang together.
God.
And they sing it together, and then like at the end when she's like, I belong to you, you know, and everything, at the very end, like she goes, I belong to you, and she looks at Catherine, and Catherine's like pointing at herself. You belong to me.
Oh, that's so cute.
I was like, I can't. Oh my God. It's just one of the best, most well-written love songs in my opinion. Like, oh
Yeah,
so good.
I feel that.
I also put If I Get Murdered in the City gets an honorable mention for me, just because that one, I'd never actually really listened to that one, and then I was sitting there and I was like, what is this? And it's just that old folky like storytelling type song.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily about anything necessarily, but it's great.
Yeah.
And I love it. But yeah, those are my two, like The Eye and I Belong With You are just like,
I love that.
they're my jams.
They are. The next album is the heaviest of hitters. By the Way, I Forgive You. Oh my gosh. It's Brandi's 6th studio album and was released on February 16th, 2018 and became her highest charting album to date, debuting at number 5 on the Billboard charts. The Joke, which was the lead single of the album, is so hefty and so good. And I remember when it first came out and I was like, David, like, okay, so my partner, we had just started dating and I was like, I love this artist. Her name is Brandi Carlile. She has a new song out because it came out in November so a couple months prior to the album releasing, and I played it for him, and he just like sat there and he was just like, wow, that's unbelievable. And we just kept listening to it over and over and over again. Of the track, Carlile said, there are so many people feeling misrepresented today, so many people feeling unloved, boys feeling marginalized and forced into these kind of awkward shapes of masculinity that they do or don't belong in. So many men and boys are trans or disabled or shy. Little girls who got so excited for the last election and are dealing with the fallout. This is in reference to Donald Trump winning the election. This song is just for people that feel underrepresented, unloved, or illegal. It was also listed on former President Obama's favorite songs of 2017. I specifically remember this, and I had to go make sure to go look it up and make sure I fact checked this correctly, but she posted an open letter to a Baptist minister she knew in her teens in front of the congregation, her friends, her family, everybody. He refused to perform her baptism, which we spoke about earlier, her faith being so important to her, on the basis of her sexuality. And there's like a quote in there where she says, I don't believe you did it to humiliate me. I think you struggled with the decision and simply ran out of time. So I went into listening to that song because I think she posted it either on Instagram or something, knowing that, and it's just so hard to listen to thinking about that. I remember, just a little backstory on me, I kind of started deconstructing at 14 years old. Prior to that, when I was a kid, I used to tell my mom, she'd be like, oh, who do you have a crush on? And I'd name one of my friends, and my mom was like, no, you don't have crushes on girls. If you like a girl, it's because you want to be her friend. You have crushes on boys. I was like, oh, okay. And so that was something that was really hard for me to deal with. And I just remember getting to this apex of 12, 13 years old, and the thoughts were not going away. And I was crying at in my room at night, praying. I think any gay kid has had this, where especially a gay kid raised in a religious household, praying the gay away, please take it away from me, because I'm so scared of what my life's gonna be like if I embrace who I really am. I couldn't tell any of my friends. I couldn't tell, but I was told God knows everything. So I was like, God knows I'm a sinner and I'm gonna go to hell. And I remember I did get baptized, but that was because I hadn't told anybody yet. And I just remember later that night, my mom, as a baptism gift, gave me this necklace that had it was a treble clef with a cross in the middle of it. And she was like, this is a gift for, pledging, to God and, all the things that baptisms stand for. And I remember later that night just crying in my room because I knew God knew I was a liar. And so when she talked about this, it really hit hard for me too, because just struggling with that. So I decided to, on my own, privately. Thankfully, at this point, my parents were dealing with their own things, and they didn't force me to go to church much anymore after that. They didn't know I didn't date a woman until I was in college. And then I was like, by the way, Mom, I'm dating a woman. And I already didn't live at home, so there wasn't anything that they could do about it. But it was just a really scary thing to have to go through. And I remember wrestling with that for a long time and still trying to go to church and realizing that there just wasn't a place for me,
I took a lot longer to start my deconstruction journey, but I remember coming out of high school and having the questions about I see my gay friends being so in love. Why is that wrong? I don't understand why that's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it started for me, was I was just I don't understand why God would be against that. Yeah. And she does talk about too in her book how when she became an adult, she got baptized. She had a baptism as an adult. She found someone who would do it, But yeah, that was very traumatizing for her. Also, going into when she wrote the joke, before 2018, so this was still after Trump was elected, she came out with Cover Stories, which was the 10-year anniversary celebration of the story, but also all that money went to, the charity was called War Children. Yeah, it was children who are suffering in war because of the fact that they were so heartbroken in the process of trying to get Catherine her green card. And they talked about how privileged they feel because they were trying to do it. They were starting to stop Catherine every time she came in or left the country. And she couldn't say, I'm in a relationship with Brandi because they would just send her home. And so in the process of this, they saw everyone else who was dealing with it, though. Catherine ended up getting a 2-year visa because of the charity work she's done. But there were so many other people that they saw that couldn't do this. And then when Trump was elected, he did all the border bans, and they thought about all the refugees and the kids and the people stuck in these places. And so they did an album where they got Obama to do the foreword.
Yeah.
They had Dolly Parton, Pearl Jam, Adele, who had already covered Brandi's song on her album 21. It was a bonus track from what I read.
Oh. Why do I not?
A hidden track.
What the heck?
Hide My Heart Away.
Oh.
As a bonus track on her award-winning 21 album in 2011.
Nice.
So that ended up on the cover stories. And all the proceeds from that went to go help fund this. But she was already feeling heavy with all of this and everything.
Yeah.
And so they wrote the joke. Also, Dave, who was their producer for this one, and co-wrote the joke, he was like, you need a song like The Story. You haven't had a vocal performance like The Story since The Story. And she was upset.
Yeah,
she was like, not happy about it. She was not here for that, and she went home. She was seething. They're in bed. She tells Catherine everything. They turn off the lights. They roll over, and Catherine goes, "But have you?"
Damn. That's tough love right there.
And the next day she woke up with the joke. She says, pounding against her chest, ready to come out.
Oh, that's great.
She said, for this song, I thought about Christopher, who was one of the musicians in there, and his t-shirt. I thought about our sneering president and the way he laughed at people who were suffering. I thought about the little girls who wanted a female president. I thought of Aleppo, Jordan, Iraq, and all the beautiful children from the Story campaign living their lives in refugee camps. I thought about mothers fleeing bombs and violence, carrying their babies on their backs. And I thought about Jesus. You don't have to like that Jesus is my home base. You can use it to discredit me in the name of all the harm Christianity has done. In fact, every single thing I mentioned above has been impacted negatively by Christianity in one way or another. I am okay with that perspective, and I think it's healthy. I, too, have been impacted negatively by it, but something mystical brings me back and time again to the revolutionary gospel of forgiveness. So that's her background of, by the way, I forgive you. Yeah. It's heavy.
It is.
It's heavy.
And you can hear it on the album. I think, and a lot of people really agreed that this was such an important record and such a cathartic record for her. Rolling Stone referred to specifically the song Party of One as a delicate masterpiece, and also rated the entire album as the 12th best of 2018 on a list of 50. She was nominated for 6 Grammy Awards, making her the most nominated woman of 2019 for this album, including not being nominated for Album of the Year. She won 3. The Album of the Year that year went to Kasey Musgraves for Golden Hour. But she took home the awards for Americana Album, American Roots Song, and Best American Roots Performance. I love that Grammy performance where she did the joke because, I remember, and I said this earlier, but, watching that performance, which I watch all the time, by the way. That's, David, literally, David and I will just, put it on just to, to be reminded that Brandi Carlile is that bitch, And I love when they, pans out to the crowd, and specifically there's a moment where, the camera hits Post Malone. He looks like he's being blown away by how good she is. And I feel like that's when the rest of the world kind of caught up,
that's when I fell in love with her. And I'm not going to lie. I was one of those people who found out about her. I saw the video come across my page after the Grammys because I don't really watch the Grammys. And I shared it immediately and was just like, who is this? And that's when I became obsessed with her.
And that is completely fair. She is great. That's why when I look at those comments from 8-10 years ago, that's why isn't she a bigger star? I'm like, just you fucking wait. The 2019 Grammys are coming, and that's when she kind of blows up. I mean,
and she almost missed that performance too.
Oh, damn.
Because, okay, so story goes, she was nominated at the Americana Roots Awards, separate from the Grammys. Another guy won them and then was like, I shouldn't even be here. I'm not Americana. I'm country. And she said, it upset her so much because she looks at Americana and Roots, like she wears it as a badge of honor because it's where all the people who country won't accept go. And she's like, it's for all the misfits and the freaks and the and the people of color and the queers and she goes, this is our place and you're basically saying I shouldn't be here, I'm normal. And she was like, we are going to win the Grammy for Americana this year. Like, it was like a vendetta for her.
Yes. Thankfully, she did.
She did. And she did it. When they asked them to perform, first off, she was nervous. She didn't want to do the high note at the end. She had throat issues all her career. And it ended up being, she didn't get it fixed until she got hypnotized. It ended up being a nervous thing that she would cause issues in her throat from her nervousness.
That is also me to a T.
And she ended up getting hypnotized and getting it fixed.
Interesting.
But she was terrified to hit that note. And they had planned the rehearsal, like the Grammys, set her rehearsal for the same time that the Americana Awards were happening. And she was going to have to choose the performance or the awards. And they chose the awards because they were like, this might be our only time to accept an award. And so they ran down the hall. This part wasn't being televised or anything. They accepted their award. She says she forgot to thank everyone because she was just so like, we actually won.
Yeah.
They walked off stage and then immediately after they called him again. And then immediately after they called him again.
Wow.
And so they won all those three Grammys in the Americana category. And then they ran back down the hall to their rehearsal, not sure if they were even going to get to be able to keep their performance spot, but they walked in and everybody stood up and cheered. And so they did their rehearsal. She missed the note during rehearsal. And she was trying to tell herself, I'm not going to be nervous about this. I'm not going to be anxious about this. It is what it is. It's going to be fine. And she got out there to start performing. She said, you know, the video screen's still down. They're checking their guitars, tuning up and everything. And it goes up and everybody's sitting when they start. And she starts singing and then she sees one single person stand up after she finishes the first course. And it was Janelle Monáe.
Oh.
And she goes, I was suddenly just performing for her. And I have tried to tell her how much that meant to me before. And I don't think she gets it. And then a wave of people started standing up. And it was her big moment.
Yeah.
It was her big moment.
And she was ready for it.
Yeah.
And that was very obvious in the performance and why it's so impactful. And oh my God, when she hits that high note.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've cried over it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And she hit it. She did great.
I would say of that time period, the standouts, obviously, the joke I fucking watched. I said, like, I watched that performance. I watched every performance she's done of that song multiple times. Also, the mother. I like.
Yes.
So, I mean, not to, again, keep, like, talking about myself a little bit too much, but, like, my relationship with my mom is non-existent. We are no contact. But right before that happened is when this song came out, and I just remember like being like just like crying over it so much, like wanting a mom like that. And it's so funny because also the album that won album of the year that year, Kasey Musgraves' album, also has a song called Mother, and it's like, it's a very short song. It didn't need to be any longer than it actually is, and it's the same thing about like, you know, loving her mom and missing her mom. And like obviously Brandi's is more about like just being kind of proud of being a mom. And specifically, like, I love this, she did this video on her Instagram where it's just her in her living room with a guitar and she's singing to Evangeline, and I'm like, this is so nice.
There was, okay, so again, I was reading her book, Broken Horses, which if you haven't read it, I highly recommend everybody reads it. I had to take it in sections because it was so heavy for me with the deconstruction of Christianity and the coming out and the different things that she goes through, I related to it on so many different levels, and I had to keep taking breaks because I was just like, this is heavy. But she talks about when they decided they wanted to have Evangeline, and when they had Evangeline, they did IVF. David, who was her childhood friend, who she thought she had a crush on, but really they were just best friends. But also, like, what she says, one of the most handsome boys I ever knew in my life. Nice. He's their donor. They have Evangeline, and she talks about, like, going through that process and how it was very hard for her because most of the classes they went to at first were geared towards straight couples.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not a father. And she goes, and it's also a problem because they usually humiliate the fathers. And they're like, oh, watch this father try to put on a diaper backwards or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm not a father. I'm a mother. But she was having trouble feeling like a mother because she wasn't the one carrying. Catherine was the one carrying.
Yeah.
And Catherine was saying she was having trouble too with like the binary of being a caring mother, and so they found the people who help you through your pregnancy. Anyway, they found someone who specifies in different types of couples, like
okay.
And so they did that, and then she wrote the mother. And my favorite line in that one is, you are not an accident where no one thought it through. The world has stood against us, made us mean to fight for you. And when we chose your name, we knew that you'd fight the power too. You're nothing short of magical and beautiful to me. I'll never hit it big time without you. So they can keep their treasure and their ties to the machine because I'm the mother of Evangeline. It just, oh my God, it makes my heart so full to know that they have these babies, they have their family, they have their compound. They have, David is part of the family, like he comes over and visits Evangeline and now Elijah.
Yeah.
And actually it's funny because the day they found out, he like donated and they had it enough to have another kid if they wanted to one day.
Yeah.
So they decided that they were going to have another kid. They hadn't heard from David in a little while. He's kind of a recluse.
Oh, yeah.
They had just taken the pregnancy test and they hear tires on the gravel outside. It's a surprise guest, and it's David. Catherine's still holding the pregnancy test. And they told him that he's going to be a father for a second time.
Surprise! I love that.
But yeah, just the fact that they fought for that and stuff. And that song just means so much to me because of that. Like, it's just
so good,
beautiful. And she overcame the fact that she was like, I didn't feel like a mother, I didn't feel like a father, I didn't know where I fit in.
Yeah.
And then she wrote this song, and it's just like, oh,
so cute.
I love it. I was gonna say too that she begged to be on Joni Mitchell's birthday tribute. And she got on it, but they met after the Grammys, the day after the Grammys.
Oh, okay. And
they went to dinner together, and Brandi brought up that she wanted to perform Blue in all of its entirety at a concert hall. And Joni was saying that Brandi was like, I was a little tipsy, I just kind of threw it out there. And then that's when Joni went, I'm not a singer anymore, I'm a painter, but I have all these instruments and stuff around me, and I love having music around me. And that's how the Joni Jam started, was the day after she won her Grammys.
Dude, that's all I want, is just be famous enough to be invited to those. I would like to go to a Joni Jam, please. I think like Hozier recently was talking about this when his latest album came out, where he was like, yeah, Brandi, who's one of his friends, she's also featured on his new record, which he said that like he was like over Zoom, like as she was doing it, and just kind of like blown away by her. I mean, like they've been friends for a while, but I guess like she had called him up and was like, hey, Joni wants people over for music, like do you want to come? And he was like, I'm on a plane. I'm leaving the bees in Ireland. I'm going over to Joni's house someday. Maybe that'd be really cool.
It was one of the most magical experiences I ever experienced. So for my birthday last year, Leo gave me tickets to go see Brandi and Friends at the Hollywood Bowl, and Janelle came with me because she's a huge Brandi fan too. And we weren't sure who the friends were going to be, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. But I lost my, there's a video of it on TikTok. I lost my shit when Brandi like held up a finger and she goes, 1 minute, we're not done yet. Leaves the stage. Sister Strings is playing, blowing our minds. And then all of a sudden the stage starts to turn around. And we're like, what's happening? What's happening? And Joni Mitchell is sitting on a little golden throne in the middle of the stage. And they brought the Joni Jam to the Hollywood Bowl. And I will never forget it. I will never forget it.
So sweet.
Seeing Annie Lennox, Brandi Carlile, and Joni Mitchell jam together on stage singing Joni Mitchell songs is the highlight of my life.
An understandable reaction. I mean, it wasn't the first time that she surprised people with that.
No.
In 2022, Carlile was at was the closing act of the Newport Folk Festival, and it was billed as Brandi Carlile and Friends. And it was an unannounced surprise that Joni Mitchell was there. It was Joni's first full-length performance since the early 2000s, and her first appearance at the festival since 1969. And same thing, everyone was losing their ever-loving mind because oh my god, Joni Mitchell's here. And of course, like, a bunch of people were on stage. I think Hozier was on stage, and like a bunch of other people were there, which I think is super cool. I love one of the things I love about her is just her looking at artists that maybe feel like they're in their twilight era and just going, I think we got some more in you. Same thing with Tanya Tucker.
Yes.
Ended up making such a great album with Tanya Tucker that she was nominated for Record of the Year like 2 years ago. And I will definitely say I'm so annoyed by this, but the amount of people that were like, who the fuck even is Tanya Tucker? Fucking maybe actually look it up. Just because they're not on Kiss FM right now doesn't mean that she's not a fucking unbelievable artist.
That's a great segue into the High Women, because it's just Brandi bringing everyone together.
Again, in 2019, Brandi co-founded the country music supergroup The High Women with Amanda Shires. If you don't know who she is, she's a great solo artist. She is also the wife of Jason Isbell, who's another fucking unbelievable songwriter, and Maren Morris, later adding Natalie Hembley. And the idea first came in 2016 when Shires was finishing her record, My Piece of Land, and she wanted to create a female homage to the legendary Highwaymen, which consisted of Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and Willie Nelson. It was also fueled by the lack of representation of women artists on the country radio and at country music festivals, and influenced by the Me Too movement. I think at this time, for every 10 songs by a man that were on the radio, maybe one would then be played by a woman. Like, you could go hours without hearing a female voice on country radio, which is so fucking stupid.
It's the same reason they started their Girls Just Want to Have Fun weekends too.
Yeah, same exact thing.
And they said it was kind of a big festivals won't book women, so we're gonna show them that we can push tickets and sell tickets out of the United States and still do it with an all-women lineup. Just
like the Lilith Fair in the 90s, speaking of the Lilith Fair, I think the Indigo Girls have also been a huge staple in Brandi Carlile's life. They sang backups on her second album. But while listening to country radio, Amanda Shires kept a running list of artists and noticed that very few of them were women. And so she got together with them and they released some songs to critical acclaim. Huge situation.
One of my I have two favorites that I wrote down. One of them is The High Women. Mm-hmm. And I wrote down the lyrics. We are the high women singing stories still untold. We carry the sons you can only hold. We are the daughters of the silent generations. You sent our hearts to die alone in foreign nations. It may return to us as tiny drops of rain, but we will still remain and we'll come back again. That is, to me, the purpose of them. And then I wrote down Crowded Table.
Yeah.
Crowded Table is one of my favorites.
Such a good song. I didn't even really listen to the High Women much when it came out, but I'm always catching myself still singing, I built a house with a crowded table. And I'm always in the background listening to it. We've spent a lot of time today talking about kind of the background of a lot of this music, which you can find on Brandi Carlile's autobiography, Broken Horses, a memoir, and that was released in April of 2021. So shortly after the High Women. Believe me, the last couple of years she's been on turbo mode, just like release. In October of that same year, she also released her 7th album, In These Silent Days, and it debuted at number 11 on the Billboard 200 and number 1 on the top rock albums and Americana and folk albums charts. The lead single, Right on Time, garnered 3 Grammy nominations in 2022, including Record and Song of the Year. And the album earned Carlile 7 more Grammy nominations in 2023, including Album of the Year and Best Americana Album, which she did win the latter of. Her next single off that album, You and Me on the Rock, earned 3 nominations at the Grammys, including Record of the Year, and Broken Horses won Best Rock Performance and Best Rock Song. She also did like a more acoustic stripped back version of that. And I will say of that whole situation, You and Me on the Rock, but specifically like the stripped back version with her wife.
In the Canyon Haze. Oh, so I watched the video of that. So what they did is they live streamed it out to theaters all over the US, and I wanted to go to it so bad and I couldn't make it. But they live streamed it, and now it's on, I think, Max. You can watch it on Max. And so I watched it. It was also their anniversary that day.
Oh.
And they sang it together, and it was just the sweetest fucking thing ever. I also feel like when I watch, Janelle and I talked about this on the way to the concert, but watching Brandi Carlile is like going to church for us. Because some of the things she said in there, and I won't go too much into it. I could go on for Brandi about hours, but like I wrote down like some of the quotes she said in there about because they had this segment where fans could call in and ask questions. And my favorite part was a fan asked about the song Stay Gentle, and they said, how do you stay gentle when your basic human rights are being taken away? And Brandi answered, staying gentle and not letting yourself get hardened is for yourself, not for others. Gentle activism is not the same as apathy. And I feel like she's such a good representation of that, because she is such a strong activist for so many things. But she is still gentle, and she doesn't let herself get hardened by it, which is so ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
I can't even pick a favorite song off that album. And I listened to the In the Canyon Haze one the most, I think.
That's the same for my sister. Like, I think for an entire year, that's all she listened to. And then Noah Kahan's album came out, and that was all she listened to after that. She's very much like, one thing comes out, that's the only thing I want. And yeah, this album was very, very important to her, which I think is awesome.
Yes. I can, like, Mama Werewolf. Ugh, that song and the lyrics and the meaning behind it is just so Broken Horses, obsessed. You and Me on the Rock, obsessed.
Dude, since it came out, literally jaw on the floor with the line like, you out in your garden, me out on my walk is all the distance this poor girl can take without listening to you talk.
Yes.
I want to be loved like that so bad. Oh man, that's so cute.
But yeah, I can't pick a favorite off the album. I'm trying to think really, really hard right now. Can't do it.
And that's fair.
Can't do it.
A fair reaction. Yeah, in that time she's released music for, or in the last couple of years she's released music for, she did a song for a Pixar movie in 2020. She's kind of been everywhere. She's been blowing up. She's allegedly doing an album with Elton John. Let's hope that happens. I would be very glad to hear it. And
she was at his final concert. She did sing with him at his final concert at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
She wrote for, it's kind of like a modern day, oh my god, what was that one that taught you about the US government and everything? That cartoon.
School of Rock?
It's a modern day School of Rock.
Oh wait,
it's called
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock.
There we go, sorry.
Schoolhouse Rock. It's a modern day version of that. It's called We the People. It's on Netflix. And she wrote a song for We the People. And it's really cute. It's all about the First Amendment. That was their episode on the First Amendment. And it's a really cool song because it's not just for kids. Like, as adults, like, it has meaning to it too. Super cool. One of my favorite collaborations ever was when her and Alicia Keys did Just that first verse that says, I have a voice, started out as a whisper and turned into a scream, made a beautiful noise, shoulder to shoulder marching in the street. Like, stabbed me right in the heart. It was just them, two pianos. Brandi had like a little pride pin on. It just, that's another one I watch over and over and over and over again. But yeah, the amount of collaboration she's done, the amount of people she works with, and she just brings people together. She has a quote where she said, by now you can see my tendencies to create a family, whatever. My cultish tendencies are real. She can create a family out of anywhere. Even when we went to the concert, everybody calls themselves the Bramley. It's just a really cool thing to see that she doesn't gatekeep.
Yeah.
She shares it with everyone. She spreads that love in such a great way.
Yeah. 100%.
And I could just go on and on about her. And the way that she doesn't hide so that she's loved more. She uses that love and uses it for activism, for charity, for speaking up for the wrongs and standing up for what's right.
Yeah.
And I just really love that about her. So, well, we're going to wrap this up, but what would you say your favorite album is?
Just because of the importance that it's had to me over the years, and the first album that got me into her, I'm going to say Bear Creek. It is a comfort listen, 100%.
I would have to say mine is In These Silent Days, her newest one, because that is my comfort album. Like a lot like your sister, that is just what I listened to for a long time. I even remember like getting ready at Christmas time for or New Year's. Leo and I were getting ready for a party, and I hooked the album up to the TV while I was doing my makeup. And I was like, sorry, babe, this is what we're listening to.
Gotta make the rules. Brandi calls. Sorry.
That's my favorite album. Could you pick a favorite song?
From Bear Creek? In general.
In general.
No, I couldn't. I don't think I could. Sorry.
I don't think. Yeah.
Oh, dang. I think it's one of those things that changes all the time.
I will say, okay, I'm going to say The Joke, because when we did see them in concert, when she sang that, I also sobbed.
I would say if I had to pick one, it would probably be The Joke as well. Yeah.
Which is funny because she didn't even want to write it. She was pissed.
But it needed to come out.
It did. Yeah, I would say only because when we saw her at concert, when she sang that song, I sobbed because I was like, this is when I fell in love with her.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel that.
What would you say is the biggest takeaway you have from Brandi Carlile as an artist or as a person?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway I think I have is that it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, and it doesn't matter how much influence you think you do or don't have. Your activism, the way that you carry yourself, that means something to somebody. Yes. And it does not take anything away from your artistic vision to stand up for what's right. I know there are plenty, and you know what, I am going to throw some people under the bus because I think we're in a world now where it seems a little fucking crazy to not say things and use your influence and your power to help people around the world just because it doesn't directly involve you. She has made that her mission. It's not like, you don't think about Brandi Carlile and go, oh, that's the activist artist, which even if she was, like, why would people think that? She has touched people in many ways for many different reasons and still has time to talk about her experiences and to raise money for people that she doesn't know and to stand up for things that are right, even if she's the only one doing that. So yes. I think that that's the biggest thing that I take away from her as an artist is not being afraid to say what needs to be said or raise money for what needs to be raised money for and all that. So that's what I take away from her.
Yes. I would say my biggest, other than that, because that was a big one for me too, but also you don't have to be in competition.
Also, yeah, it's not a competition. There's room for everybody.
There's room for everybody. She's making a family. They have the Joni Jam is the perfect example of that. It's just a whole bunch of artists coming together and making music together.
Right. It's not about being the best. It's not about showing off. It's about the love of music. And if you think that there isn't room for everybody, you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
Sorry, a little bit. Kind of a weirdo.
And look at that. She's opened the door. She's helped so many other people and everything. And look how many Grammys she's won now.
Exactly.
Like
putting that spotlight on other people has not diminished hers at all.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't lose anything by not just putting her spotlight on other artists, but also on different causes and that sort of thing. Like, her star has only gotten brighter.
Yes. And I am so excited to see how much brighter it gets.
Me too.
I can't wait for more albums. I hope to God that this rumor of Elton John and Brandi Carlile is true, because I need it in my life. And so, yeah. All right. Well, it is your turn to pick our next artist.
Oh, man. You know what? I think because her album also just came out and I've been listening to it like crazy, I would love to do Kasey Musgraves next time.
I am down.
I love
that
her.
Is exciting.
I love her so much, dude.
All right, so join us next month for Kasey Musgraves. If you have not yet, go check out Brandi Carlile. Go check out her book, Broken Horses. And yeah, we will see you guys next time. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.